Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, July 8th. We're well into summer, but since it's Monday, that means it's time for another episode of Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia. Our topic today is a tale of teamwork. We are brought to you by Rogue Tulips LLC, 501c Consulting and Association Management Services. Check us out on the web at roguetulips.com. We're also a proud supporter of the 501c League. Check out the league at the 501cleague.net. It's a virtual membership group for anyone and everyone who works in, supports, or loves 501c organizations. So I'm here today with my colleague and consulting partner, Agnes Amos Coleman.
Good morning, Cecilia. Good morning, everyone. Again, as Cecilia said, my name is Agnes Amos Coleman. I'm a consultant with Rogue Tulip, and I'm also an author. Over to you, Cecilia.
Thank you, Agnes. And I am Cecilia Sepp. I am the principal and founder of Rogue Tulips, and I am also the CEO and founder of the 501c League. So please check out our groups. Agnes is also a member of the 501c League, and she is a mentor, as am I, in our mentoring program, which recently became a member benefit. So you can find out more about that as well at 501cleague.net. But today, we're talking teamwork. And one of those important aspects of teamwork is communication. And that is because everybody needs to know what they're supposed to be doing. Because if you don't know your role or what you're supposed to be doing, that leads to team dysfunction. And I don't necessarily mean dysfunction as in like, oh, that person's so dysfunctional. But what I mean is the team can't function as well as it could. It's not reaching its potential. And one of the reasons I started thinking about this is because last Monday, after we recorded last week's episode, I had to go to the DMV. And usually the DMV in Maryland, it's like any DMV, you do have to wait in line sometimes for a while, but generally our services at the Maryland DMV are pretty good. You come in, somebody asks you what service you need, they give you your number, you wait, and when your turn comes, they make it very easy for you to know that because they make announcements, they have big screens saying who's up next, and it's very easy. They tell you which counter to go to. It's usually very well organized. And again, you just have to wait usually because DMVs are crowded. Well, Maryland's government is always striving to try to do better, which I totally admire. And so the DMV is now making appointments. So you think, wow, I can make an appointment at the DMV and I know when to show up and I know when I'm going to get waited on. So I made an appointment. Well, when I got there, it was very chaotic. And one of the reasons it was very chaotic is because the people on the team did not know exactly what they were supposed to be doing. So there was a young man who was a greeter who could not answer any questions because he did not know any answers. He kept interrupting the people at the counter that were checking people in to ask them questions. He had angry people coming up and complaining to him about being really behind on their appointments. I realized that there was something going on that had to do with the check-in process. And it was this. There were two lines, basically. If you had an appointment or if you didn't have an appointment. Then the appointment line, the woman was just supposed to be checking us in and giving us our number, but instead she was reviewing all of the documents. And so she ended up making everything run 40, 45 minutes late. And so people are getting really angry. She started calling people up in groups. Who has a 1:15 appointment? But here's what the problem was. And I suspected this, and then it was confirmed when the manager came out and pointed this out to her. She wasn't supposed to be doing that. She was just supposed to be checking you in and giving you your number to get called to the counter. So she wasn't supposed to be doing that. And once he told her that, the line started moving. So why she didn't know that, we'll never know. Maybe she thought she was being helpful. And I think she did think she was being helpful because that's what she told the manager. She said, but if they have the wrong documents, and he said, but that's not your job. That's the other people's job. And so I think that works that way in any team. But, once that got straightened out, all of a sudden the system started to flow a little easier, a little better, simply because she got the information she needed to play her role effectively on the team. And then once you got your number and you got called up, I was out in 5 minutes once I got called up to the counter, because what I had to do was a very quick thing. But it just said to me, here you have a greeter who hadn't been trained or briefed. You had a woman not quite aware of what her actual role was, not doing her job, but doing someone else's job. And so when that happens on a team, it's like in sports, if you're not playing the position you're supposed to be playing, you end up causing your team to perform poorly and maybe win the game. And so, I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Agnes?
I think I love that narrative, and there's a lot of lessons here. But before we jump into that, for our international viewers or our global viewers, DMV means the Department of Motor Vehicles. So I just wanted to clear that up front so that you're not lost in communication here.
Oh, good point.
Yes, because
that's a very good point. Yeah.
Our global audience may not know the acronym. We tend to deal with acronyms, but I just wanted to clarify that. But Cecilia, you really lay out a good scenario there, and I think communication it's really an endeavor for us as individuals within organizations, even within our families, to improve our ability to communicate effectively. And it's very, very important, because if there was a transparency in the culture of this is where your role is, and this, or within that organism or that process, if there's a clear communication or transparency of thought process, then you shouldn't have to experience what you went through. So there is a breakdown there in that process, which obviously the knock-on effect is that, it makes the organization looks bad. And for those of us who work within the 501c, if we're dealing with our members, if we're, introducing new products and services, and we didn't communicate it well to them, then it means that they cannot use that products and services effectively. And what that does is that it makes us look bad as an organization and questionable. So I think we definitely need to guard against that, particularly those of us who play in a membership organization.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, because one of the reasons I wanted to do this topic today was because of this experience last week, because I was also framing it that way in my mind as I was waiting and observing and figuring out, I think I know what's going on here, because the angry people kept coming up, and I kept thinking that, what if this were a member of a group? Now, obviously you could stretch that out and continue to the analogy, well, we're all a member of the community of Maryland, and so we have an angry community member. And that's really what we have in our 501c groups. We're a community of members, and we want to make sure that everybody who's on the staff team serving our membership knows what they're doing and why they're doing it and how it fits into the flow. You can't just tell people to do stuff. Another one of our strange little technical issues today, earphones. But you can't just tell people. I've always made sure people understood why they were doing what they do. I lead a team, whether it was a small department or an entire organization, why we're doing it. So some people kind of laugh because I'm seen as something of a serial volunteer. And some people may not think that's a good thing. But I think it's important to be involved and to help out. And you can't complain or point things out if you're not willing to do something about it, which is why, folks, if you wonder why I'm a serial volunteer, that's why, because you have to step up and explain things. And so kind of bringing it back to our topic of communication and teamwork. So I was recently elected to be the vice president of my community organization, and just last month. And so since we were getting ready to have a new board year, I volunteered to do a presentation about what does it mean to be on a 501c board of directors, because our community association is a nonprofit entity in the state of Maryland. And so it was that education of, this is your role, this is why we're here, this is why we're doing what we're doing in a larger context. And I think when you put things in that larger context of the why you're doing it, not just do this, but why. See, and that's where I've always gotten in trouble in life too. I've always asked why. Why am I doing this? Why do you want me to do a certain thing? And I think, now everybody's all excited about Simon Sinek saying, first you start with why. It's like, well, gee, I've always started with why. It's like, well, why do you want me to do that? And sometimes my parents would just say, because I said so, and that was the only why you need it. But, you have to have that why on a team. And as we've mentioned in previous episodes, Agnes and I first met and connected because we worked at ACHCA together. And I tried to, and maybe here on recording, Agnes will say, no, Cecilia, you were not that good at communicating. But I tried to communicate to everybody on the team the why we were doing things and how it fit in. And we did a lot of cross training, I guess, for lack of a better word, but cross work, cross team, trying to make all, because everything flowed together, and for the team to understand that, because remember we used to do all the marketing together, so everybody had the same marketing messages, and and you came in, Agnes was our director of certification, and Agnes was really very good at summarizing things, putting things in context for other people, how it related to certification, so that people really understood what was going on. So you really have to pull people together and make sure they understand what their role is. And, did you have any other thoughts on that, Agnes?
Totally agree, Cecilia. And what it does is that it also, teamwork promotes a positive work culture and work atmosphere. There is an interconnection, and you've already mentioned that. And what it does also is that it's that ability to increase information sharing, particularly again, I bring it back to 501c because we play in this space. If we want to share information, if we want to market products, you talked about our example with ACHCA. If we're marketing a membership product, the certification product is also part of membership, values, not values, membership deliverables or membership benefits. So, or the conferences, that's also part of a membership, benefits that our members can get value from. So there needs to be that sharing of information with all stakeholders involved, so that the member involved can really understand where their value is coming in for the dollar that they're paying for the membership dues. So if we have that with that view in mind as associations, we're more likely to take a step back and look at how we can really improve our communication from bottom up and top to bottom.
Exactly. That's a great summary of that. And I agree. That's very well said. And I think we're getting close to closing for today. But people say there's no I in team. But listening to what you just said, Agnes, there is an I that supports team, and that's information. And the only way to get people information is to communicate. So the I in team is the information that supports it, and the C in team is the communication that gets the information out there. So I guess we created a new word today, Agnes, teamic. If you're not teamic, you're not getting things done. So that's great. And as Agnes has done several times, putting it back in the context of 501c organizations today, if you have a good staff team, make sure they know what their role is and what they're supposed to be doing. It doesn't create silos. What it does is break silos down. And I know in the 501c area, that's something we all worry about, is having those silos. Some people used to jokingly call them monuments to excellence. But the thing is, if you're not talking to each other, you're isolated. And that's one I we don't want in our team. So any closing thoughts, Agnes, before we wrap up for the day?
I think that was an excellent closing thought. I like that new word that we've just created. So let's give it a buzz. Hashtag, right?
Hashtag teamic. Are you teamic? Or is your team anemic because it's not teamic?
Like that.
That's a great one. Well, as always, thank you, Agnes, and for all your insights. And we're going to wrap it up for today. And as Agnes and I say every week, take 15 minutes and talk to somebody, because you might learn something. So long, everyone, for this week, and we'll talk with you next time.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Agnes. Bye.